Well, there's a lot more to this neighbourhood than people think, but it just so happens that there's an airport here with a lot of stories to tell. So welcome to Don Muang. So welcome to Thailand. This would have been the first spot where a lot of people, particularly older travellers, got their first taste of Bangkok air. Stepping out of the arrivals hall, the doors slide open and you feel that warm wind hitting you as you stumble out, jet lagged, looking for a taxi or looking for somewhere to have a smoke. A lot of good memories for many people, I would imagine. Before Suvarnabhumi Airport opened, this airport had the IATA code BKK, and after Suvarnabhumi Airport opened, they took that code and Don Muang became DMK. But another thing they did, which is unexplainable, is they changed the spelling of Don Muang. They put an E in it. And I had a comment on a video last year where I talked about Don Muang, and this guy was so insistent that I'd spelt it wrong. And I was thinking, should I explain all this to him? But I thought no, because his initial comment was actually quite sarcastic. But most people, including me, still use the old traditional way of writing Don Muang. So Don Muang was Thailand's second airfield. The first one was right here, Sarpatum Airfield, as it was known back then. And now it's known as Sarpatum Racecourse. It's part of the prestigious Royal Bangkok Sporting Club, and this is where the birth of Thai aviation happened in 1911 when a Belgian pilot named Charles van den Born made the first flight demonstration in February of that year, 7 years after the invention of the first airplane by the Wright brothers in 1903. Charles van den Born was flying a Farman 4 biplane, which was named after one of the Wright brothers, and among the audience was King Rama VI, who was so impressed that 3 army officers were sent to study in France to become pilots. Sarpatum Airfield was used by the country's first army pilots before permanent facilities were established at Don Muang in 1914. The first ever commercial flight to land at Don Muang Airport was in 1924, and this was a KLM Royal Dutch Airlines flight that had come from Jakarta. There are people out there who still prefer this airport to Suvarnabhumi, and you're probably thinking they've got to be crazy, surely. Suvarnabhumi is a lot newer. It opened in 2006, whereas this airport dates back well over a century. It's a lot bigger, it's got better transport links. The train station is right in the middle of the airport. It's more environmentally friendly, it's got better car parking, it's more technologically advanced and state of the art. So what more could you want from an airport? But I get the impression these are older travellers who have more of an emotional connection to Don Muang because it reminds them of the old days. But some of the reasons given for preferring this airport were rather interesting. Whenever you land at Don Muang, there's always someone on the plane saying, oh look, there's people playing golf. I wonder if it's a real golf course. Well, it certainly is. Between the two runways here is an 18-hole golf course owned by the Royal Thai Air Force. And it's the ideal spot for stressed out army officers to unwind at the end of a long day, no doubt. It was opened in 1952, and it is open to the public, by the way, and it's not unusual to see the odd cobra slithering around. And they have a lighting system to warn players about planes, but I would have thought the noise alone would be a good enough warning. But then again, they're probably wearing earplugs. Bit of local history about Don Muang. It started life as a small village around the Klong Prem Prachakon Canal, and back in those days it had a different name. It was called Don E Yao, which is Hill of the Hawks. There were lots of flocks of hawks that used to gather on the land around here back in those days. Not so many now, probably because of the planes. And then Wat Don Muang here was established in 1886, and then the railway line was built through here in 1898, and the community just grew from there. So the military decided it was a good spot to put an airfield because the land was very flat on one side of the railway line, and of course the close proximity to the railway station. And they renamed the area Don Muang after the Don Muang Fighter Brigade, and the name has stuck ever since. Great spot to do a bit of plane spotting is right here on the red line platforms. You get a good view of planes taxiing and taking off, but I think you'll need a pretty good lens. So in 1947, Don Muang changed its name to Bangkok Airport to cater for international tourists, and the government kick-started a series of tourism campaigns to attract Western tourists. In 1961, Thai Airways Company Limited, which became Thai Airways International, started flights to the Philippines, Japan and India, and then other airlines such as Lufthansa, Pan Am and the British Overseas Airways Corporation also saw an opportunity and started flying in and out of Bangkok. The airport started running at maximum capacity in the 1960s when, at the start of the Vietnam War, the US Air Force started using Don Muang for its command and logistics hub, while at the same time the airport was running its usual number of commercial flights. So across from the airport you've got the local neighbourhood of Don Muang, and I thought I'd go and take a look around. I'm going to stick to the main road, which is Song Prapar Road, and I'm going to venture up about 300-400 metres and see what's here. But from what I can see, it's got all the characteristics of a typical suburban Bangkok neighbourhood. There's a local market, lots of independent shops, there's restaurants and street food of course. There is a small shopping mall further up, but there's also quite a few hostels and hotels catering for people using the airport, so it's not unusual to see the odd backpacker or three. I was last here in 2021 and I took this photo from the bridge over the canal. And if we fade this photo into the present day, you'll see what has changed. On the right hand side, you see the new social housing project has reached this area. And this Ban Mang Kong project has slowly been edging its way along the canals around the city, improving the lives of canal communities. So it's nice to see that. So this is where back in the day I would get out the taxi, go and check in, and then come back out here and stand around chain smoking, chatting to other travellers who are equally as depressed as I was at having to go back home after such a great trip to Thailand. I think the worst part of that was taxiing down the runway, taking off, and then watching Bangkok get smaller and smaller. That was a horrible feeling, and you'd have that feeling in the pit of your stomach going round and round. You'd be utterly depressed all the way back, you wouldn't sleep. And you certainly weren't looking forward to saving and working for months on end just so you could come back. And I think that was one of the feelings that made me so depressed that I ended up staying on here in Thailand. Going back to that depressing feeling I just mentioned, it affected guys in different ways. You'd hear stories of guys losing it at the airport and trying to end it all. Not just here in Muang, but also at Suvarnabhumi. There's been several news articles over the years of guys who didn't want to go home and they were determined to commit suicide. And of course, some of them succeeded.
The apparent suicide took place at Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport on March the 2nd. A 64-year-old Canadian man reportedly jumped from the 4th-story walkway leading to Gate 10 of the terminal, which is 16 metres above the ground. Following a spate of suicides, the airport announced it would install 2.3-metre high laminate glass barriers in addition to the existing 1.1-metre high metal railings along the walkways.
So 2011 saw a pretty grim few months for not just the airport, but the whole area. Billions of baht worth of irreparable damages to equipment, planes and the runway in the worst ever flood seen in the history of Don Muang.
Now, floods continue to wreak havoc in Thailand, with Bangkok's airport now under threat. The country's Prime Minister has also warned all of the capital city's residents to move their belongings at least 1 metre off the ground and to prepare for 4 to 6 weeks of flooding.
So here at the international terminal, there's an observation area that has reopened, because last time I was here in 2021 exploring, there was a restaurant blocking it off at each end. So it's nice to see that they've reopened it. Anyway, you get great views of planes taxiing, taking off, landing. After a while, you are a bit limited with what you can film because you need a good zoom lens. Plus, there is a roof right in front of you, but I'm going to switch this off now because I want to get a shot of these very ominous looking grey clouds. Oh yeah, songs about flying. They don't have to be aviation related. So here's my three favourites. Tom Petty, Learning to Fly, Commodore's Flying High, and Bill Conti, Gonna Fly Now, the theme from Rocky. So give us some of your favourite songs about flying in the comments. So I've been filming this video on and off for the last 2.5 weeks. I've been to the airport here about 8 times for 3 or 4 hours at a time. I've been to every corner of this airport. And one thing that surprised me is that security haven't challenged me or stopped me once. And I expected them to, because I've got a camera, I've got equipment, I'm filming stuff. It's pretty obvious what I'm doing. I could easily be doing reconnaissance for some dodgy terrorist organisation. So there could be a couple of reasons for this. One, they haven't noticed me, which is highly unlikely. In fact, one of them just rolled past on a Segway about 5 minutes ago. Or two, the first day I got here, they ran my face through the facial recognition software and realised that I was a nobody. I wasn't a threat. They've got bigger fish to fry. And that brings me on to the next topic, which is drugs. Over the years, there have been numerous cases of people getting caught out here in Don Muang carrying drugs through the airport, either in their baggage or inside their bodies. There could be a number of reasons why someone would want to do this. Desperation, addiction, profit, stupidity. The consequences, of course, are famously harsh here in Thailand. One of the most famous cases was a British woman called Sandra Gregory 30 years ago. She was caught with 87 grams of heroin and she got a life sentence.
After a 10-minute hearing conducted in the Thai language, Gregory had her sentence confirmed by a translator.
The death penalty is the mandatory sentence for the crime I'd committed in Thailand. And it was a woman behind me. She said, no, 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 no. He's reduced it to life. And then he reduced it to 25 years for you.
Sandra Gregory is about to leave this holding cell for what could be a long period in a Thai jail. Her only hope, an appeal or intervention by the British Prime Minister John Major, and that's thought unlikely.
In 1969, a 200 million baht expansion project was announced to deal with the increasingly larger aircraft and the increasing numbers of tourists. The terminal buildings were renovated and expanded massively and the runways remodelled, and the 500,000 tourist arrivals in 1970 had increased to over 2 million by the end of the decade. But the 1970s and early 80s also saw 2 of Thailand's worst ever air crashes, and both planes were en route to Don Muang. On the 25th of December 1976, Egypt Air Flight 864 was flying from Rome to Tokyo via Cairo, Bombay and Bangkok. The Boeing 707 crashed into an industrial complex 6 kilometers from the airport by the Vipawadi Pahonyotin intersection. All 52 people on board were killed, plus another 19 on the ground. On the 27th of April 1980, Thai Airways Flight 231 from Khon Kaen stalled and crashed during a thunderstorm on approach to Don Muang. The plane, which was a Hawker Siddeley HS748, had been struck by a downdraft and was in a nosedive, but just as the pilot had pulled the aircraft up, it was too late. The accident killed 44 passengers and crew, with 9 survivors, and the crash site was 12 kilometres northeast of the airport in Pathum Thani. So Terminal 3 is a ghost terminal, although parts of it are used for private jets, which makes it pretty much closed to the general public. Speaking of ghosts, I've been doing lots of research for this video about the airport and the surrounding neighbourhood, and I haven't been able to find one single ghost story, which I thought was strange given the age of the airport. It's been here well over 100 years, whereas Suvarnabhumi Airport only opened 18 years. Yet if you do a search, there's at least a dozen ghost stories related to it. But it was apparently built on cursed land. They do have a big public showing of their spirit houses, and they have monks coming in every year to perform a ceremony. So there must be ghosts, right? Either that, or it's the staff just dressing up, playing games. So 2006, they opened Suvarnabhumi Airport, and they couldn't wait to shut this place down and show off their new state-of-the-art shiny airport to the world. But the problem was, after a while, the domestic and low-cost airlines found that it was too expensive to use Suvarnabhumi. Plus they had continual problems with cracks in the new runways. So they reopened this airport as a domestic-only terminal 6 months later. Here in the International Arrivals Hall, there used to be a door leading to the railway station, and they had a sign and a timetable on the wall next to it. I want to see if that is still here. In the old days, if you were going to Khao San Road from Muang Airport and you wanted to get there for as little money as possible, you could get the 59 bus, and that would drop you pretty much on the doorstep, but it would take you 2.5 to 3 hours because of the traffic. And in the days before the expressway, taxi meters, and of course the SRT Red Line, a very viable and cheap way to get into the centre of Bangkok was to get a train from right here at Don Muang railway station. Now, it's been closed about 18 months now, and it's in pretty ramshackle condition, as you would expect. There's a lot of dust, there's a lot of padlocks on doors and things flapping around in the breeze. And you do get the odd train passing through, carrying freight. Just taking a walk down the lines to the new Don Muang railway station, and alongside the tracks you can still see the remains of the old Hopewell structures. And the Hopewell project was an urban rail plan abandoned in 1997, partly due to the Asian financial crisis, and the partially built structure of the Hopewell Don Muang station was still here as late as 2012 before it was demolished and the new railway station was built in the same spot. So if all goes to plan, then this station will be expanded to accommodate the airport rail line platforms. That will be extended from Pier Thai, and of course the high-speed train line platforms. And I was thinking to myself, it might be a bit of a squeeze between the current station and the expressway, but according to these diagrams, it is going to be possible, and I reckon it will be up and running within about 8 to 10 years. If military aviation is your thing, then this is one place you definitely should have on your list. Unfortunately for me, I'm too late on a Saturday afternoon and it's closed on Sunday and Monday. I'm busy for the rest of the week, so I will have to show you a few highlights of the Royal Thai Air Force Museum to a piece of music. Well, it's been a lot of fun exploring the airport and the neighbourhood over the last week or so. I've got to thank the staff at the airport for putting up with me as well. Anyway, please do subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you want to support me and support the channel, you can do so via the Buy Me a Coffee link on the screen here, or you can join the channel and become a member. That just leaves me to say what I always say: thanks for watching, and I'll see you sooner than you think.